Hello, everyone. Nice to talk to you all again today. I do appreciate you attending the training yesterday, and hopefully today I can get a little further into Newforma and help you understand a little more about what we can do in Newforma. So if you remember yesterday, we talked about the basics: open Newforma Project Center, add a project to your My Projects, open Outlook, and then start filing emails. We talked a lot about Newforma Search as well. So today, what we're going to talk about is file sharing using InfoExchange. So essentially, this is sending files using a website. So we're going to talk about that now. So we talked about yesterday why Newforma. So InfoExchange is the project's website where anyone on a project team can go to access information about that project wherever they have web access. It solves major communication issues with external users. So when we send a file transfer, it's related to your project automatically. It not only tracks what you sent to whom and when, but it also tracks who downloaded what and when. So additionally, you're able to send up to 10 gigabytes of information. That's a lot of information in a single file transfer, eliminating that need for an FTP site, or I'm sure you all can relate those issues of not being able to send something through email because it's too big, right? So InfoExchange, again, huge amounts of data you can send in a single file transfer and track it with the project. We also make it optimized for our industry, which InfoExchange will allow you to communicate with both internal and external team members, whether they're in the office or in the field. And our products always integrate with your existing technologies as well as your external partners, whether they are Newforma customers or not. So something we kind of talked about yesterday is, Procore. Most of your external users might say, hey, we use Procore. So how do we make Newforma work with Procore? External users can download information via email or can even use your company's InfoExchange website if you want. So it's free to them and it's easy to use. When we share that information as an internal person, we control who has access to what information for our projects. Anything you don't want to share with an external user will remain private. External users will only see items they're a party to. So today, we're going to talk about the project team, how to give external members web access. We'll talk about sending and receiving files, how to use Outlook to send and request files, and we'll also talk about shared folders and how they differ from a standard file transfer, and we'll take a look at the project website, which is what we call InfoExchange. I'm going to hop into my training environment here. Sorry about this. I was bouncing around a little bit before we got on the line. Okay, so as you remember from yesterday, we went in and we added One Oak Street and Alpine Grove Science Center to my list of my projects. I'm logged in as someone named Adam Close. So that is our internal user. And you're also going to see me referencing our external user. His name is Bob Welder. So the first thing we're going to do when we open Project Center is we're going to actually enter the project that we're looking to send a file transfer on. So to do that, we're going to double click on the project. And I'm brought to my Project Center home screen. So today, we're really going to live here in InfoExchange, and we're also going to go into project files a little bit. So InfoExchange is an icon with the satellite dish. So you can see that satellite dish here as well in your top tray. Anything that is in your favorite activities will have a shortcut in your top tray, okay? You can change your favorite activities by going to the guy with the gear, or the gears behind his head, and you go to your project home contents. When you go there, you can move some of this information around, change the order. You can also drag it from the top into a different area, project management, okay? So if you wanted to add a favorites, you could certainly do so by moving that from contract management, for example, up to project, to favorite activities, okay? So just a few ways that you can customize Newforma Project Center. Now, again, we're just going to go into InfoExchange. So my icon is in my favorite activities. I'm going to click on Info Exchange to begin. Oh, nope, I'm sorry, we're not starting there. We're going to talk about the project team real quick. That's down here. So the project team. This is kind of important. Your project team is where you're going to go to list all the people that you want to have access to certain information on Info Exchange. So you're going to have internal team members on here, and you're also going to have external team members on here. Now, you don't have to add people to the project team in order to share information with them, but we want them on the project team, and we want to give them Info Exchange access if we also want to allow them to send us information back. Okay, so to populate the project team, first, when you first add a project to your My Projects, you will need to add yourself to the project team. And so what that looks like, let me just remove, I'm going to remove these people so we can see what it looks like. No? Oh, it's a confidential project. I'm in the wrong one. Sorry about that. I want to be in Alpen Grove. Okay, so you'll first get this message that says you're not a project team member. And to join the project team, of course, click Join the Project Team. Now this is for you so that you can be on the project team. So we're going to click on Join the Project Team. And a box is going to pop up with your information in here. This information is going to be pre-populated based on what Newforma knows about you, so about your company. But a lot of this information might be missing. You might need to fill in your company. You might need to fill in your discipline. It just kind of depends on how you were entered into the system to begin with. So you may need to pick your company. To do so, we just click on the word company and we search for the name of our company. Your company won't be in here. Mine's JMA Demo. So I'm going to pick that company, okay? Then you might have a location or two to pick from, maybe several, and you pick that location that you're working from. Now the next tab that we're going to go into is Project Roles and Permissions. Now notice how this says project. This is specific to the project. Your contact information will carry with you to other projects, but your project roles is just for this project. Okay, so I'm going to click there. And from here, we will allow web access to this project on your Info Exchange server. So the reason why an internal team member might want to have Info Exchange access is in case you are in the field and you don't have your laptop and you cannot connect through whether it's VPN or remote, and you still need to download a file or you need to look at something in a project. You can go to the website using your cell phone or your iPad and you can access information about the project. It's kind of like a Newforma Lite. So you're not going to be able to do everything that you can do in Project Center, but you'll be able to see a lot of items. And we're going to look at that here soon. Your permission set here says internal user. Newforma is going to default to internal or external. It's going to know that you're an internal user because you have Newforma Project Center downloaded on your machine and it's connected to your company's server. So it's going to call you an internal user. Now, if this says external user and you are an internal user, you're going to need to see a system administrator, somebody on your IT team, or a global admin at your company so they can fix your records. But it should never say external when you're actually internal, and vice versa. So if you have an external user, this should come in and say external. It should recognize that they don't have Newforma installed on their machine connected to your server. Okay, so you don't need to change this. We'll just click on OK. And this is going to add Adam to the project team. And now you can see he has Info Exchange access. Here's that table again. So remember yesterday I told you you can right click on any of these gray items and sort this table the way you like. So I can move this stuff around. So your Info Exchange access might not be where mine is. So just know that it's there. You can drag these around, move this over, whatever you want to do. Okay, so now we have one guy on the team. We want to add more people to this team. So the way to do that is to go to Add Team Members, and you can pick from contacts or from a company, but I would go from contacts when I first start. So we'll go to from contacts. And from here, we have a list of all of the users that have been entered into Newforma. So this is your global address list on Newforma. And you can, of course, filter down. We have this table again. You can search for maybe an @ something name. I just know that all my contacts have the number 24 in their name. So I'm going to filter down by 24. And then I'm going to select a few people to add. We already have Adam. I'm just going to select a couple of people. Now let's just get all of them. And then I'm going to click on OK. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to get that box. It's that project roles and permissions box. But this is for everybody that I just decided to add. And so I'm going to allow web access to this project on our InfoExchange server for those folks. Now, I don't have to. Again, I can send files to these people without giving them access to InfoExchange. I can even send files to people who aren't on the project team. So I don't have to do this. I don't have to turn this on. But the reason why I would turn this on is so they can also go and send information back to me. And that's kind of important when we're talking about project teams communication. So this is where I'm going to go to allow that web access. And I'll just click on OK. It tells me that it's added 9 members to the project team, and I'll click on OK there too. Now the next thing that might happen is this box. It says the following project team members received Newforma InfoExchange account. So this means that Bob Welder, this is the very first time that we added him to a project team and gave him InfoExchange access. The very first time. So he's going to get an InfoExchange account and an email notification telling him how he can set up his password. You will also get that same notification, but your password is your Windows password. So whatever you use to log into your computer is your InfoExchange password. For an external member, they're going to have to make one up. Okay, and you're only going to get that email one time. Your external users will only get that email one time, because essentially this isn't saying you've been added to a project team. This is saying you can now access InfoExchange. So it's saying welcome to InfoExchange. In the future, when you add someone to a project team, they're not going to get this email. But if you want them to know that you added them to the team, then you can always send an email. So to do that, you can just highlight all the folks that you want to send an email to, right-click and click on Send Email, or you can click on Send Email in the taskbar. And when you do that, Outlook will pop up, and it'll have all their names in the address line, and you can say, hey, just add you to this project. You know, when you log into InfoExchange, you'll see it. You don't have to do that again. It's just a level of customer service. If you feel like offering that to your team members, you can do so. Otherwise, the next time they log into InfoExchange, they'll just see the project, and they'll know I have another project to look at. Any questions about adding team members? All right, so if you don't see them in your contacts, so when I do add team members from contacts, I can add new down here on the bottom left, fill out their information, go to company, and see if their company exists here. And if it doesn't, I can add that company. And when I do, this is where I go to create an address for that company. Okay, and I can create multiple addresses for the same company, because we know that a lot of companies have more than one location. So you don't want to add that company in twice. You just add a second address. Now, if you needed to do that, you can edit a company this way. Once you get here, you can click on edit, and it will let you add an address to that company.
Sarah, I have a real quick question. So we have a global contacts. Is there a way that we can import that so all of that information is here when people go in and start adding or wanting to add people to their team?
What is that based out? Is it an Outlook thing?
Yeah, it's within Outlook. We can go to our global contacts list and our global projects list and stuff like that.
Yeah. So in Outlook, here's another way that you can add.
That was Josh. Josh, what was that?
I think you're talking about the Exchange global address list, the GAL.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a couple of ways that somebody should have gone over this with you when they set up your project center with you on the IT level, but I can go over a couple of items here really quick. So we have people. When you go to your contacts and you have your contact cards in Outlook, you can drag and drop those folks into your project team, which effectively adds them to Newforma's global address list. So this says the contact RP batch 24 already exists. So it goes by email. Would you like to update? It's very important that whenever you get this message that you click yes, you do want to update, or you're going to end up with duplicates. Another way, Another way that you can add it is going to be in Project Center Administration, which I can't get into right now. You do have a Project Center Administration training that I believe we have scheduled. I can't remember when, but I believe we have that on the books. Anyway, you can mass import a Excel file full of contacts.
Thank you.
Of course. So here we have all of our contacts. Again, I showed you how you can create one from scratch, how you can drag and drop from Outlook. Just remember when you do that and you get a notification that it's a possible duplicate, that you just update that duplicate's information. You're going to end up with duplicate entries, and that's going to confuse Newforma. So once you add somebody to the project team and then you add their duplicate entry to another project team, they are going to have major issues connecting to one or the other of those projects. So let's just make sure we don't have duplicate contacts. Okay, so once we have team members, we can also add groups. We can filter those team members down. I don't know if you saw when I was deleting, but say you had maybe a structural group or you had a design team group. You can pick people that you want to be in that group. And they can be on more than one. So maybe you can go and you do the design team, and you want this Bob Welder and this Mark. Whoops. So we have Bob Welder is on 2 teams. And I can drag and drop people into those teams as well. This is helpful for when maybe you have like a project administrator or somebody helping you specifically in the construction phase. They can understand who is getting what type of submittal or RFI. So maybe you get a submittal coming in for a mechanical team. They know who to send that submittal or RFI to. You can also mass email these people. So I can click on the header of a team or a group and send an email to everyone in that group. And then here's that email, it just pulls in their information. I can send files as well, which we're going to talk about, to a group through Info Exchange. Okay, so let me take you to Info Exchange and we're going to just dive right into files. All right, so here's Info Exchange. Remember yesterday we talked about the Duplo people. Anytime you see those Duplo people, you can click on them, turn it into one, and it's all about your incoming, your transfers, your outgoing. When I click on that guy again, I can see all of the transfers for the entire project. So anybody who sent them out, anybody who sent them in, any drafts, any expired, and any open transfer requests. So the first thing I want to point out is all expired. This is a part that a lot of our users get hung up on. So I want to just dispel any questions right away. Expired transfers. So if I can get you to kind of imagine what I'm talking about, you have 2 servers connected to this project. Your first server is your project center server. It's the server that houses all of your project files. So remember yesterday I showed you how Newforma is a window into your project files? It's because it connects to your Project Center server. That's the server behind your firewall. It's the one that only your employees can see. No one externally can see in that server. Then you have a firewall. And on the other side of the firewall, we have another server. It's our info exchange server. We have that server so that you're able to share information to external people without giving them permission to view other files in your Project Center server. So when you send a file transfer, essentially what you're doing is you're making a copy of a file on your server and putting the copy on your info exchange server. So when we expire something from info exchange, we're just removing that information from the second server, but we're not removing the original information on our main Project Center server. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Perfect. So it's very important that we allow items to expire, and I'm going to show you where that is here in a second. We allow items to expire from Info Exchange because your Info Exchange server doesn't have as much space as your Project Center server. So if you leave these files on that server forever, eventually your Info Exchange server is going to run out of space and you won't be able to send files or receive files at all on any project. So keep that in mind as we go. And I wanted to show you what happens when we expire a transfer. Essentially, we sent information to somebody, and then after a certain set of time, we let that information expire from the Info Exchange server. But I can still track everything. So let me show you an outgoing. Here is an example of an outgoing transfer. And I have this thing called a change log. We have this all over Newforma. We have change logs on almost everything. We even have change logs on contacts. We can see who entered a contact. So a change log is a log of what happened to that transfer during its life. So first we created that file transfer, and then it took us 1 second. Notice how we go all the way down to seconds. It took us 1 second to go from upload began to upload complete. And then a few minutes later, and all the way down to the seconds, Bob Welder partially downloaded this file transfer. And then he did it again. And then on this date, this file transfer expired. So what did he download? I can go here, right-click, view event details, or I can just double-click and see what he downloaded. Now, of course, this just tells me the name of the file, but what did he not download? So I can go to transferred files, and these are all the files I sent Bob. Now, mind you, this is expired, and all of these files are still live. So I can open these files. I can select them in the file system and see where they live. Here's that zip folder where they live. Okay, so I can still see everything that was sent. I can see when, I can see what was downloaded. I can see who downloaded it, but it's no longer live on a different server on Info Exchange. Now, if I were to go through some of these transfers, I might see somebody forwarded this. I'm looking for just a download. There it is. This says downloaded. So instead of partially downloaded, when we see downloaded, that means that they downloaded everything. So we don't really need a list of what they downloaded because we know it was all of the files that were transferred. Now, if I wanted to repost this file transfer, maybe it was a mistake and it expired earlier than I wanted it to, I can repost it by right-clicking and clicking on Repost Expired Content. That will allow me to put this back on the Info Exchange server for a certain amount of time, whatever I choose, and I can just click on OK and it will go live again. Okay? So all of this makes great sense, I'm sure, but it'll make better sense when you see how we send one. So let's go ahead and create a file transfer. And here we have a couple of options where we can just transfer files or we can fill out and record a project transmittal. Essentially, the project transmittal or recording one or filling it out or whatever doesn't really take any extra work on your part. We're just telling Newforma to create this extra PDF that we might print off. Maybe you're going to send physical samples, but you also want to send an electronic copy. So if you're sending those physical samples, you're going to want a PDF transmittal that you can print and send. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to record a project transmittal, but again, it's very much like just transferring the files. We're just telling Newforma to create a second PDF. So I'm going to click on OK. And now I'm going to pick my to field. So in this to field, if I know someone's on the project team, I can just start typing their name and matches will show up. So I know I want to send this to Bob. Maybe I don't know who's on the team. So I can just click on to, and I can see a list of my team members. Now maybe they're not on the team, so I can add them here. Okay. I can also view all of the contacts in the global address list from here. Just check the name of the people I want to send this to or the group. And maybe they're not on the team, they're not in Newforma, and I don't really intend on putting them in Newforma. I can just type their name in here, their email address, excuse me, and I can send them this file transfer. So I'm going to take out these guys, and I'm just going to show you. You'll be able to see what it looks like on both sides. Somebody who's on the team with info exchange access and somebody who's not on the team without info exchange access, and what it's going to look like for both of those people. Okay, and then we need to fill out a subject. So our subject line could be anything we want to. We're going to call this a file transfer test. And then your remarks, like an email. Hey, I'm sending you this file that you requested, whatever you want to put. And then here under associated files, remember we talked about asterisks. Anytime we see an asterisk in Newforma, that means that a field is required in there. So obviously we can't send a file transfer without putting a file in here. So we can add files or we can add a folder. Also remember I told you about the 10 gigabytes worth of data. That's why we have this add folder. So you can add an entire folder and transfer that entire folder, whatever that is. Maybe it's your CAD folder. You can transfer that whole thing. So I'm just going to add a few files just for the sake of time. We'll go here. We'll add those 3 files. Okay. Now our email log is perhaps I got an email from somebody saying, hey, can you send those files? I can drag and drop that email in here, which will not only file the email to the project, but it will tie it to this file transfer so that later I can say, why did I send those files? Oh yeah, I got an email asking for them. Okay. Related items is something if you have like an action item or a submittal or an RFI and it relates to this file transfer, you can then go and relate that to whatever it is. You just go another project item and you can relate it to something. This defaults to meeting minutes, but all of these different items you can relate your file transfer to. You can basically do this on anything. So you can relate, if you have a submittal, you can relate that submittal to an email or an action item or meeting minutes, whatever. And then that change log, this is where this change log is going to start getting populated. And so when I actually transfer this file, something's going to show up in this change log saying that I created this file transfer. Okay. Now your description of content, this is automatic based on the files that I added. So this is how Newforma is going to pull up that PDF transmittal. So maybe I am going to send physical samples. I can always add an item here. And I can say, you know, a CD of as-built, if we still do that anymore, or a thumb drive or something. And then I can put the date. Okay, or I can check a box and I can delete that line. Maybe I'm going to send 2 physical copies of these as-built. Okay, so I can change that too. I don't have to. And now I'm going to show you, down here we have printer save form after filing. Newforma is going to save this form. So really, if you wanted to print it, you would have to check that box so the form will pop up for you to be able to print. Now, most of the time I just suggest that you don't check that box, and I'll show you how to find it if you don't, but I want you to see what the transmittal looks like. So I'm going to leave this box checked. And then I'm going to click on Create and Transfer. Now here's some transfer options we're going to go through real quick that are kind of important based on maybe the project or the people you're sending this item to. So this is all about the transfer itself, this physical transfer. So we're going to specify who has access to the file transfer on InfoExchange. Now obviously you're saying, well, duh, Bob and Sarah McKinney, right? Those are the people. Well, sure, we can say only the specified recipient can see this on InfoExchange, or we can allow specified recipients, these guys, and fellow company members, meaning people who work for their same company on the project team with InfoExchange access will be able to view this file transfer. They won't get a notification, but they'll be able to log into InfoExchange and see the file transfer. Why is that helpful? Maybe you have a list of people that you just want to send it to really quick, but you left somebody off in a company. Maybe it was an admin that you left off. And that admin gets a phone call from Bob. Hey, this is Bob. Somebody just sent me a file transfer. I'm in the car. Can you download it and see if it's important? Oh, sure. Well, they're going to log into InfoExchange to look for it, but it's not there because you didn't allow the fellow company members to see it. So by doing this, you're opening it up for other people on their team to be able to help them out in their absence. But of course, they have to be on the project team in Newforma as well for this to work. Again, you can open this to all project team members, self-explanatory. If they're on the project team with InfoExchange access, they can log into InfoExchange and see that this was sent. Most popular is this middle one. Public access, I believe, is grayed out as well for your company. It is exactly what this.
We have a real quick question. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Can we give people the ability to add team members in their company, or do we have, like, do they have to send us a list that says, you know, because that happens a lot where we say, okay, I want to add something, and then they say, oh, and I need to add this engineer, and then that engineer says, oh, I need to add this person, or I need to add this person, and I need to add this person, and they're all people.
Right.
We have to control.
No, we don't.
Okay.
We don't allow for external team members to mess with stuff in your project. And there's a lot of reasons why, and that is really a security measure, because what if they add somebody to a top secret government project that's not supposed to be on the team? So they're going to have to go through you for that. But no, we can't, unfortunately.
Okay, no worries.
Sorry. All right, so that public access thing, I believe is grayed out. Most companies gray it out, meaning you can't even select it if you wanted to. It is exactly what it means. That means if anybody has access to this project on InfoExchange publicly, which would be maybe for like a bid set or something, you have some documents up that you want other people to be able to access, then you could give public access to that, and perhaps on the owner's website or something, send login information. But again, I rarely ever see anyone wanting to use that because they just get a little nervous about it. So I believe that's grayed out for your company. The next option says allow recipients to download partial content. So remember in my example, when Bob Welder downloaded one file of like 10, that's because we allowed recipients to download partial content. So what happens is Newforma is going to send an email notification saying, hey, we just sent you these files. So you have two options. You can either download all of them, or you can click on a hyperlink where you can download whatever it is that you need. Now, if you don't want them to download partial content and you want to force them to download the whole package, you can just deselect this box and it will force them to download everything in that file transfer. And I'm going to show you an example of that notification so you can see what I mean. Now the next one is remove content from Info Exchange after 30 days. This is the one where I told you we got to make things expire because we are going to save space on our server if we do that. Now you can decide what that day is going to be per transfer by clicking on this edit button, and you can tell it to expire on a different day, whatever day that's going to be. Okay, so you can pick from a calendar. And then here we have hide recipient list. Again, this is grayed out on mine. It might not be grayed out on yours. Essentially what that does is it sends the to and the CC recipients as a BCC. Okay, so you can hide those recipients if it's an option for your company. And we require Info Exchange login to download. So if you're sending top secret government files to somebody, you can select this box to require that when they click on a link to download or the download package link, they have to log into Info Exchange with their credentials. So the confusing part is, wouldn't it be like that anyway? If you don't require Info Exchange login to download, you can send an email to somebody and they can forward it on to anybody else, even not in their company, and they can download the files you're sending. So it's entirely up to you how you want to lock down this file transfer. But know when you do that, you're forcing the recipient to log into Info Exchange in order to download anything, which is totally acceptable. And then we have send notifications and reminders. If we click on edit, we can choose to send reminders in a certain set of days to different types of people. So to the external recipients who have not downloaded file transfers or this file or a file from this transfer in a certain amount of days, or we can send a reminder, and we can send a reminder to the sender if those external recipients haven't downloaded files by a certain day. And then we can also notify the sender, which is you, when the external recipients have downloaded those files. So there's different, for those of you who like those reminders, there's different settings for those notifications that you could set. Now the options that I have here are the most typical and the most common, most popular options. But as I said, you can tailor this based on the transfer. So if you need to lock it down a little bit more, that's entirely up to you. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on OK. And we're going to send this file transfer out to Bob and smckinney@newforma.com. And then I'm going to show you what that looks like on their end. I'm going to log into Bob Welder's email. This is that external user. Now you notice over here it says that it's been done. The upload is complete. And I'm just pulling up the S. McKinney email right now. So here's this file transfer email for Bob. And just a quick tour. So we see that it came from me, Adam. And now we can download all associated files right now. We just download the whole package. We can sign into Info Exchange, that external website. We can download by clicking on one of these hyperlinks. We can just download one of those files right now. And then over here, that's for an external user with Info Exchange access. Now this is an external user without Info Exchange access. This is what they get. So notice I can click on these hyperlinks to download them, or I can just download the whole package, but I cannot sign into the Info Exchange website. So that's the difference. Again, you can still send file transfers. They don't have to be on the team. They don't need Info Exchange access. But by giving them Info Exchange access, we're allowing them to send us files back. So let's hop into Info Exchange as the external user so you can see what this looks like. So here's our terms and conditions. Just going to click on accept. They have to accept terms and conditions like every time they log into a project for the first time or something. So it takes us directly to the file transfer. Notice up here we're in Alpengrove. This is the file transfer right here, and I can download these files now. With the transmittal, I can download all contents. I can see the remarks, and then our change log. So earlier I just clicked on part of this file transfer, and so it already says that it's been partially downloaded. Okay, I can go back here to file transfers, and I can see all of the file transfers that were sent to me as an external person. Here's my inbox. Notice how it says all my transfers, inbox, outbox, expired, and open transfer requests, which we're going to get into in a second. And then from here, as an external user, I can send files. So it looks just like an email to your external users, where I can pick a subject, and so this will be my response to those sent files. And then I have to pick from the project team. So this kind of helps answer your question. They can't add anybody. And this is just another way to make sure your information is secure, because we don't necessarily want them sending information to people we don't know about. I can copy somebody on the team. If I wanted to send it to the whole design team, I can do that. I can type in my remarks. And then I drag and drop my files. I can just click on add files here too and send that back. And all I have to do as an external user is click on send files, and those files will be sent back to Adam, Bob, and Mark. Okay, so now I'm going to go into Adam's email. This is the internal user. And here we have a notification from the server saying that a pending incoming transfer has arrived. And now I can see who sent it, who he sent it to, including who he copied, what his subject is. I can download it here to my computer if I want to. But I also now have the ability to view this transfer in Newforma Project Center, which is something an external user can't do because they don't have Newforma Project Center installed on their machine. So I can click on that, and it's going to take me directly to the project in Newforma and that transfer. So here's that pending incoming transfer. Now, what I need to do to get it from pending to actually in my system is to acknowledge the receipt by right-clicking or clicking on Acknowledge Receipt in the taskbar. And then I can either put the information into a particular project folder. I can just acknowledge it and let that information stay in my transfers folder, or I can record it as something else. For example, if someone sent a file transfer, but they meant to send a submittal, I can then take this file transfer and turn it into a submittal instead. So I'm gonna show you how to extract it to a project folder, and just click on Acknowledge Receipt. And then you pick the project folder that you want that file to go into. So I like to pick my CAD folder, so I'm just gonna pick that. And then continue. Okay, so we have this change log that's following me around. It's showing me when Bob started this transfer, and then it's showing me when Adam received it. That was when I did the right click to receive it, and then where I put those files. So there's that detail. I can also go to transferred files and see it. I can just double click. I don't have to navigate anywhere. I can double click and open it right now. So I don't have to go, well, where is it? I can't find that path. It's not there. So I can just double click and open this guy. Okay. Any questions about that process, sending a file, receiving a file?
Real quick question, Sarah. So when you double click that PDF, it opened up in Newforma Viewer. Since we all have Bluebeam, can we have that default to open in Bluebeam?
Yes. Good question. Let me show you. It's a little advanced. We're going to go to this guy with the gears. This is where all the fun stuff lives. So when we go here, we're going to go down to File Associations. And then this is where you can pick where you want your PDFs to open. So you just navigate to your PDF viewer, whatever that is, Bluebeam, and click there. So it'll turn into Bluebeam. I don't have Bluebeam on my machine, unfortunately. So, but yeah, you can change it. And this is for everything. Of course, notice we also have the RVP files or the Revit files you can open in viewer mode by default as well.
Thank you.
And follow-up question?
Oh, follow-up question.
So these changes that you make are for your session of Newforma only, not the project? So someone else will come in there and it may be a different viewer that's a default for a different person, correct?
It's for your Newforma Project Center, just you. Yeah, so it's based on your machine. Because somebody might not have Revit or not have Bluebeam or whatever installed in their machine. So it's based on the user, not necessarily your project or your session, but yeah, it's on the user.
Good.
So the process of, I'm going to use a parking analogy here. The process looks like it's like self-parking. Basically, I have to take a file and go and put it somewhere in order for them to see it. And then when they bring me a file, I have to take it and then park it myself in a folder. If I have a consultant who is actually reasonably well organized, is there any way that I could basically get something equivalent of valet parking, where when they come and put a file in a certain folder on the Exchange server, that it actually just automatically moves it over onto the server, the equivalent server file? Or do I have to?
So we're going to talk about shared folders in a second. This is different. This is just transferring information back and forth. You're more than able to use shared folders, and we're going to get into that here in a sec.
Great, thanks.
Yep. Okay, so one more thing I do want to show you, just for the skeptics. Remember when we got into the external users InfoExchange website, and I showed you that they could see files that were sent to them, and that's all? I'm going to show you what an internal user can see. And that way you can kind of tell the difference. So here's that file transfer that I got back from Bob. And remember, this looks just the same as what Bob could see, but I'm going to go back here to file transfers, and it still says inbox here. So here's the difference. We have all my transfers, inbox, outbox, but we also have all project transfers. This is different. Bob didn't have that. So as an internal user, I can see a whole lot more than an external user can. Okay, and that's really just for those folks who get kind of wary of the information that we're actually sharing with our external folks. Whatever you send to them, they can see. Whatever they send to you through InfoExchange, they can see, and that's it. Now, another tip when you're in InfoExchange is to make sure you sign out using this box over here. The reason why is if you share a computer, a machine with somebody, maybe it's an iPad and you access InfoExchange. If you just close out of this box, it's going to still think that you're signed in. And when the new person goes to sign in, Newforma is going to have some trouble. It's going to be confused. So make sure you sign yourself out completely and properly. Okay, so another thing that I want to show you is in Outlook. You can send files through Outlook. So here we have the file transfer, send files. I'm not going to go through this whole process, but I want you to see what it looks like. So here's where we will pick our project that we're going to send the files associated with. And we'll pick our files to transfer. Here's our remarks, and our remarks will go there. And we just click on OK, and it'll send those files. Another thing we can do is request files. So you can do this from Newforma as well. So in here, we have a request file transfer, but you can do that through Outlook. And so the request files will be in an instance that you need to tell somebody that you need some files. So they don't have to have InfoExchange access. I think the best case or the best scenario here is perhaps you're at the end of a project and you had a photographer go out and take photos of your finished building. And those photos need to come back. So normally you would maybe send them through an FTP site of some sort, maybe Dropbox or something. Here you can just say, here's a one-click and done link to send me files really fast. You just click on this link and send me files. They don't have access to the project. They don't have access to any other files or file transfers. Just that one time they click and they can send you files, and then they can never do it again. Once they click on it, that link expires immediately. So the way to do that, again, file transfers, request files, you pick the project. If the project isn't listed in your dropdown, you can click on this box and find one. So I'm just going to pick Alpengrove. The subject pre-populates to whatever the subject is on the email that you have highlighted. So you can still change that. And you can just say test photos. And then the send to, again, is going to pre-populate to whatever email you had highlighted, the to field. So I'm going to still send this to Bob Welder. And then this is from me. Any remarks, please send photos. And then I'm going to request that file transfer. So now what happens is Bob Welder is going to get an email saying, you need to send those files over to me real quick, please. Let's get to that. No, it's not. This is wrong. So here we have a requested file transfer. Just want to show you how this works. They'll click on the send requested file transfer button, and it's going to take them to a place in InfoExchange that they can't navigate to. Hang on. This happens sometimes when I click too fast. Newforma has to catch up with me. So this is actually tracked in InfoExchange under open transfer requests. You notice we have this open transfer request right here that we sent to Bob because we requested a file transfer from him. Now we can see what's going on with that. So we can track it through Newforma. I'm going to try to click on this. It takes just a minute for it to go through. So here it is. It tells us what project it's on, but I can't click on this button to see anything else. I can't click on anything. All I can do is fill this form out and leave. So I can change the subject. I can't even change the to. I can add any remarks, and then I can add files. So when I do that, I can send those files. It's going to kick me out. So I can't just start poking around in this project. It's going to kick me out completely. So it's saying, thank you, it was sent successfully, you can close this page. So now when I go back and try to click on that link, it's going to tell me I can't because it's already been sent. So you can't get back in here. You already sent the files. You can't just keep sending files over and over again. So there's no way for me into InfoExchange without a login. Okay. Any questions about the request file transfer option?
Yes, we have one question. I'll let Joe ask it.
It's a stupid question, but if I can envision or see a user clicking on the link, they go to navigate through, oh wait, is this the right file? They back out of that message. Then they have to click on it again a second time to actually attach the right image or attachment. Are they blocked out? Or because
until they actually click on send files, they're not going to be blocked out.
So they can't click more than one time. They can only send once.
They can only send once, but they
right.
can until they send.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got a follow-up.
We got one more question.
What about transfers greater than 10 gigs?
Well, I got a question. What are you transferring that's greater than 10 gigs?
So 10 gigs is a lot.
Yeah.
It's an extremely large amount of data.
Our Revit files right now, the biggest one what we have, maybe 500 megabytes. Half a gig.
I was planning on using Newforma now to transfer all of my bootleg movies to people in China. So that's
there you go. Good idea.
The answer is, Mark, is 10 gigs is huge. That's a lot of data. So
huge. Yeah, it really is a lot.
It's big league.
A lot. So if you're transferring a few project folders, like the entire structure, maybe you're exceeding that limit. But really, Newforma, we don't intend for you to share all of your folders out to anybody. The point is to keep your stuff private while only allowing access to a limited amount of data. So I would say if you're exceeding 10 gigabytes, you should be talking to somebody like a project manager or your managing principal or somebody like that, because I'm guessing you're probably sharing information you're not supposed to. And that's just a guess. So file transfers, I think we're good. So let's talk about shared folders and what's the difference between a shared folder and a file transfer. So a file transfer, like you saw, is static. This is something that's probably not going to change. This is a photo. This is a site visit report. This is the meeting minutes. This is the submittal response. That's what we're sending through InfoExchange as a transfer like this. It's static. But what happens when you have something that's consistently changing? That would be, my best example is a Revit model. So you have a Revit model that you need to share with maybe your external consultant, and it's consistently changing. It changes all day long, and you need to have that available to your external users more than just a one-time transfer. So that's kind of what a shared folder is used for. So let's talk about that. That's in our folder structure. So when I click on project files, and we have our folder structure here again, I can decide, see how these are gray? This was like a practice. But I can decide, okay, I want to share this folder. Maybe I just want to share the architecture folder inside of my photos folder. So I'm going to allow this folder to be live, and it's going to automatically share at a certain time every day that I set. So still, if you remember my illustration at the beginning, my mental illustration, you have your project folders, that's this stuff, these are your project files. And anytime we put something on InfoExchange, whether it's a file transfer that's static or a shared folder that's more user-friendly as far as you can update it often, right? Like an FTP site kind of, you're still making a copy from your server and putting it out onto the InfoExchange server. So if you are to save a file to this folder that's shared, pretending this architecture folder is shared, you then have to sync the folder to the copy that's out on InfoExchange. So that's the difference between an FTP site, is that it's not as live as an FTP site, because we want it to be a little more secure. The goal is to keep our files secure. So a shared folder is something that you can go and share. You can set it to automatically share every single night at 3 in the morning. Or you can set it to share 5 times a day. Or you can also force it to share yourself, okay? But it's syncing the contents of that folder, making a copy and putting it on InfoExchange for external users to view. So let's set one up. Like I said, my best example is going to be your CAD model, your Revit model, whatever that is. That's not a model. But of course, it could be like a meeting minutes folder. I've seen some people do that because they go, I don't want to bother having to download these meeting minutes all the time from my external person, and I'm not contractually obligated to write meeting minutes, so I'm just going to share a folder for them to dump them into. So you can do that too. Okay, so what we do is we find the folder we want to share, we right-click, we click on InfoExchange, and we click on Create Shared Folder. So that's here. It's over here too. InfoExchange, Create Shared Folder. Okay. I'm a right clicker because I like to know I'm doing it to this folder where I actually am. So I'm just a little more quirky, I guess. I'm going to click on Create Shared Folder. And then I'm going to pick who I'm sharing this folder with. So who's going to get this stuff? So I'm going to pick my Bob Welder guy. I'm going to copy myself because I want to know when notifications go out. And now it copies the name of this folder. So it says architecture. It's mimicking this folder, but maybe I don't want Bob to know that I call this architecture. Maybe I want him to think I call it something else, Bob's folder. So I can call this Bob's folder here without changing this folder's name. And then my remarks is something that's going to be generic, like I share or I repost every day at 3 a.m. Something generic, because the remarks will go out in the notification every time you share the folder. So you don't want it to be specific to that day or that particular share. And then we have our publish options. I'm going to click on this tab. This record copy folder is set up by your IT team. Don't mess with it. But then we have your files to publish. So you can pick up specific files that you're going to publish in that folder, or you can pick the entire folder. And then this XREFs, I get questions about this all the time. So you can include XREFs, okay? But something to note, anytime you or Newforma shares the folder or syncs the folder, if someone is in one of those XREF files, Newforma will not share the contents of the folder because it needs permission or access to that folder immediately. And you know, like when you're opening a Word document and somebody else is in that document, it's going to say, sorry, you have to open read-only. Newforma doesn't understand read-only. So it's just not going to share the folder. So we have to be careful when we're sharing XREF, because people can't be in those XREFs when Newforma shares. So just a tip. Now we also have manual publish options. Remember I told you you can set it to sync by itself, or you can manually publish. You can manually sync. So this is the publish options for that manual sync. You can save a record copy, and then you can notify each recipient. Mine's grayed out because we turned it off on the project level. But saving the record copy essentially is saving a snapshot of exactly what you sent at that moment in time. Sometimes that's important and sometimes it's not important. So when we're talking about a Revit model, if you're really worried that somebody's going to mess with that Revit model so badly, it's probably better for you to save a detached copy of the Revit model to share than it would be to save a record copy, because your folder is going to start getting really big if you save a record copy every time you share your Revit model. And then notify each recipient means they're going to get a notification that you just manually published the shared folder. They'll receive that info exchange notification. This next option is upload options. So this is going to kind of answer your question you just had about how can I get somebody to be able to just dump something in a file folder. Maybe I have a responsible consultant. So you can share this folder with them and they can put items in those folders here. So this is where we're going to give those permissions. So you can allow or not allow users to upload files of their own. So it can be you can see my stuff, but you can't put anything in here, kind of a permission setting. Or it can be a two-way street where you're sharing info and then they can share it back with you. So if we're going to allow them to upload files, what else are we going to allow? Are we going to allow access to the files uploaded by other companies immediately? Meaning, if Bob Welder, he's at McDougall, and I add somebody else at a different company, Marianne, if Marianne puts files in that folder, Bob can see them right away. If I disallow, then Marianne will have to wait until I accept those files to see them, for Bob to see them. And then we can allow access to those upload files, but not synchronize with the shared folder. Okay, so what does this mean? We're going to start getting really confusing. So the shared folder is the folder that's on the Info Exchange server. Remember those two servers I talked about? We have our physical server and we have our Info Exchange server. So we're going to allow access to uploaded files, but we're not going to put those files yet in that shared folder on the Info Exchange server. Or you can let them go into that shared folder on the Info Exchange server. My opinion is that these would be the 3 things that you select every time that you allow someone to upload files. I think those are the best and most user-friendly, and it's friendlier to your consultant. But of course, it depends on the information you're sharing. Now, this is the button that we want to be careful about. Automatically synchronize files into the associated project folder. So remember, we talked about 2 servers. You got your Info Exchange shared folder, and then you have your project folder that's on your physical server. This is going to allow not only those files to go into the shared folder on Info Exchange, but they're going to come past your firewall and into your project folder on your main server. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Perfect. Some people don't like that. Some people love it. So it's definitely up to you how you want to use that. Just be careful, because if they were to, for example, name a file the same name that you have in your shared folder, they could potentially save over your file. So just be careful when we talk about that. And then we have these asterisks and these little I buttons, okay? So you can click there or look at those to see more information. So we can allow Info Exchange users to create and rename subfolders here. So they can create their own folders inside that shared folder. Now we have our sync schedule. This is where you're going to set that sync schedule, kind of like Outlook. How often do you have a meeting, right? So we're going to create a new time for a sync schedule. I always recommend that you pick a time that people are going to be out of your folder. So if you have a Revit model that you're sharing, it's hopefully your team members are done working on that Revit model at 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. and they're home sleeping, I hope. So pick a time when you know that users are not in that Revit model or that folder, whatever it is. So we have the shared folder update. When are we going to start? Friday the 13th. Happy Friday the 13th, y'all. And so we can pick, 3 p.m. or you can pick tomorrow at 3 a.m. We'll start at 3 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. And then here's our recurrence. And then we can pick how often. Daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. We can pick the days. We can do weekdays only on these days, right? So there's lots of different options of how often you're going to allow this to repost. And then we'll start it. We can pick an end date, or we don't have to at all. We can just say no end date. And then click on OK. And then here we have save a record copy of the published files every time that it syncs. So every morning at 3 a.m. we're going to save a record copy. And then this publish notification means every single time at 3 in the morning we're going to send a notification out to the recipients that this folder was republished. Sometimes that's not necessary, especially if they know that every morning when they get in the office they should just look. But you might want to send a notification anyway just for the sake of it. So we'll just click on OK. And now you have this time. You can pick several times. You can pick another time where you have it at also at 8 a.m. and then another one at noon and another one at 4, whatever you want to pick. You can pick several. And then here we have, it says scheduled updates require file system credentials in order to apply file system permissions when synchronizing files and folders. This could be a project setting. So if your company is requiring the permissions or the credentials, then you just have to enter your Windows credentials here and your password, and it'll show up as in asterisks. Nobody will be able to steal your login or see your login. And then somebody else could come in and put their own stuff here. So really, this is just allowing us to apply file system permissions every time we sync that file. And then we do next action, synchronize contents. So I'm going to click on that. And Newforma is going to create that task. And it's also going to send an initial shared folder notification to those recipients. And now our folder has turned blue with a green arrow pointing to the right. Remember yesterday when I said I recommend that anytime you go to see a file, you go through Newforma? This is why. Because if you go through Windows Explorer, this architecture folder, you're not going to know it's shared. And so you could potentially put information in this folder that you don't want shared, because it's not going to change the icon in Windows Explorer. So let me show you. This folder looks the same, architecture. That's it. So under photos, it just looks like that. We don't know it's shared. So you're still going to have users.
Another real quick question. So it's shared in Newforma, and someone goes through Windows Explorer and renames that folder. Does it break the link?
No.
Okay, got it.
Good question, though. So now this shared folder, people, again, they don't know. So that's why I have these examples down here. You might want to call your folder Revit shared, or RVT shared, or shared RVT model, or with something like that. So we know, so your users know, if they are in Windows Explorer, this is my shared folder. I better not put something in there that I don't want shared. Okay, so we recommend that you do that. That's why I have these examples here. Now, what's the difference between this shared folder with the blue folder and the green arrow and this shared folder that's gray? Basically, what we did was we went into this shared folder and we removed it from Info Exchange. And in doing so, makes this folder gray. And the reason why it's gray is to let us know that at one point we shared information and there are file transfers associated. And I know that doesn't make sense, but every time you share a folder, we have an Info Exchange transfer associated with that shared folder. So here's that all outgoing. Here we have outgoing transfers, and then here's that shared folder update. So anytime we have a shared folder that's expired, it's going to turn gray to let us know there's some file transfers associated with this on Info Exchange. Okay, I can also go in and I can repost that shared folder. And so it's going to use the same settings that it was before. And we'll turn it green again. Okay. Now let's go into Bob's email so you can kind of see what that looks like. And then we'll be done, unless you have questions after this. I'll show you how the shared folder looks for an external person. Maybe. So here's all those files that we shared with him. He can download those updated or new files. So notice how it says updated or new. So if I were to go into my files and I only updated this folder with a new file, then Info Exchange is going to just let Bob download only the new file because he has all the old ones. But he can also sign into Info Exchange. And here it is. See how it's called Bob folder. And here's those folders inside the folder. And he can see what's going on in there. He can select a few and download those. And then over here we have tasks. He can upload files. Okay. And he can drag and drop files. So if you were to have, let's go to my desktop. He can drag and drop files here, say in that folder. And then here it is. Okay, he can remove it. Under this tasks, he can create a subfolder, remember, because we gave him permission to do that. So he can create another folder and he can call it something else and put stuff in there. Okay, so when he does, anytime Bob uploads something, so we'll just say here, we can add a file, call it that one. More files. We're going to upload. Now Adam is going to get a notification that Bob uploaded something. And it says here, files have been uploaded. This is what he put in there. I can go into Project Center and see what that looks like. Okay, let's see. Right here, transferred files. This is what he sent me. Since we allowed him to upload those, I can just acknowledge this transfer. Since we allowed him to put them directly into, I think we did, didn't we? Directly into our server, we could go in here and find it. Refresh. Did we let him? I don't remember if we did or not. I think I might have unchecked that box.
No, we
So
thought,
had I let,
didn't you just transfer the Fowler Square back to yourself?
oh yeah, I did. You're right. That's what I put in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought we did give him access. Yeah. So there it is on my server. But if I didn't let him download those items to my server and only let them be in the shared folder on the InfoExchange server, I wouldn't be able to see this here. I would have to go and acknowledge that receipt and transfer them into my shared folder in order to allow them here. So we let him place those files directly on our server.
We have a real quick question.
Yeah.
We have certain folders on our servers where you have to be given access by our IT department. So I assume that that would not work to take these files into those because our external consultants would not have access.
Yeah, so Windows permissions trumps Newforma permissions every time.
Okay, thanks.
So hopefully everyone can see the benefit of whether it's a static file transfer or sharing a file or sharing a folder. Of course, if you have questions, I welcome those questions. I don't have anything to show you, any more things to show you. So if you don't have any more questions, I can give you your Friday back.
One question.
Yeah, we have one question.
Yeah.
With shared file, with the shared folder, do you see, like with InfoExchange, when I'm sharing a specific thing, like using InfoExchange, well, maybe I'm using the wrong term, but I see like when they downloaded and all that stuff. But with the shared folder, do I see if they actually opened it up or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Good question. So you can see, notice here, we can see that Bob uploaded a file. Of course, I can't see that he downloaded anything because I never downloaded something on Bob's behalf, but it's the same idea. So you'll just go to that shared folder transfer, and you can see the subject is Bob's folder. So if I had 6 shared folders, I can filter and just say, I'm looking for Bob's folder. Where's that folder? Okay, here it is. So here's all the things that have happened to Bob's folder from the time it was created as a shared folder to right now. See, it says it automatically extracted contents. Bob uploaded something. We can double click and see what that was. So yeah, we can track it just like a file transfer. And you were using the right terminology. It is an InfoExchange.
You see things going in and out of the folder, but you can't see the access when they're accessed.
We can't see it like that, no. But we can see anytime someone downloads a file. And then internally, it's a little different, right? Because I can go into Windows, and again, Windows permissions trumps Newforma, but I can go into Windows and delete a file as an internal user, and I'm not going to be able to see that here.
And the one thing you didn't cover, but I assume this is the case, is in all these shared folders and the InfoExchange folders and files, the external users can't delete files.
Oh, no. No. That's another point with Newforma is we lock it down. This is the whole reason why we have those 2 servers, is so you're so careful as to what they can do to your actual files or what they can see. But no, they cannot delete anything.
I think that's all the questions that we have today.
Awesome. So just as I went through yesterday, I'm going to do it again because I have to. Common questions over here on the left-hand side. Those do change every single time you are in a different area of Newforma. If they don't answer your common questions, you can click on the question mark on the top right-hand corner of the screen. It will take you to wherever it was that you clicked the question mark, and you can also search. So if you had a question about shared folders, you can type that in here, and it will take you to all of our information about shared folders. We also have, well, it will eventually. Here you go. So here's all of our help about shared folders. We also have learning tools where you can go and see video tutorials as well as download our quick reference guides. You can do that as many times as you want to, and you can share these links with each other. Those videos are 4 to 12 minutes in length. And we have a customer community where you can go and share ideas and ask questions, just like I told you yesterday. You can also contact support if you have any problems or issues with the shared folders or anything else with Newforma. Their email address is support@newforma.com. I'm Sarah McKinney. I'm your Newforma trainer, and you're more than welcome to copy me on any of those support emails, smckinney@newforma.com. Thank you so much. I hope you all enjoy your weekend.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. Bye.